a great audience like this in the middle of the winter. I don't typically get to talk to people that raise animals. I assume most of the people, or there's someone in this room that raises animals, right? Yeah. It's kind of funny, there's the Department of Animal Science, and then there's the Department of Agronomy, and it's like, it's strange. You think that they would probably be closer connected, and sometimes some universities they are, some they aren't. I'm fortunate to be at this university and work closely with some animal scientists, so we can start asking some of these broader questions. My role at the university is to work both in forages and annual systems, so perennials and annuals, but not really with animals. But a lot of the things that you see here today, I think can work for your system. So how many of you grow cover crops? Okay, how many of you know someone who grows cover crops? How many are interested in growing cover crops? Huh, okay, all right. Okay, so let me shamelessly plug my program now. So how many of you get emails from me 3 or 4 times a year? Forage Quarterly Newsletter, anyone? No one, all right, this is awesome. Okay, so you want to search, this is something you want to sign up for. I'm very sensitive about blowing up your emails, so you're only going to get 4 emails from me a year. I kind of wish I wouldn't have called it the Forage Quarterly. I wish I'd have called it maybe the Forage Annually or the Forage Biannually, because it's actually a lot of work to put it together. But if you search the word UMN forages in your Google bar or Bing, whatever you use, it'll bring you to the top hit, which is the Forage Management page. You can click on there, go down here to Forage Quarterly Newsletter, and you can sign up for that. And what the Forage Quarterly Newsletter is, it's a way for us at the university to tell you what we're doing. It's been said many times that we are great at hiding what it is we do. And so what I do with the Forage Quarterly Newsletter is it's an opportunity for my graduate students to start packaging some of their work. This is an older edition here. You can see double cropping with peas and forage mixture, alternative annual forages, sorghum, sorghum. It just keeps going on and on and on. There's cover crop things in here as well. I believe in this issue we have, we're looking at making alfalfa protein pellets to feed the fish, to try to bolster the alfalfa markets in the state. That seems like that's coming along quite nicely. There's some work about predicting quality in the field, and quality is an important aspect, particularly in our alfalfa system. So again, you should sign up for this. You're only going to get 4 emails from me a year on that, and a lot of good information there. I also put my presentations online here at Forage Presentations. There's also cover crop presentations. This presentation will be up here. I typically give about an hour lecture, so there's a lot more slides here than what I'll cover. So there definitely will be online here, probably by next week at the earliest. Here's some older lectures here, optimizing cover crops, alfalfa stand path, weight increasing. There's a lot of good things here you can check out. Okay, so now the shameless plug for my program is over. Let's talk about some cover crops. So I got my PhD in North Carolina and worked pretty heavily in cover crop systems. And North Carolina is very different than Minnesota. I knew nothing about Minnesota when I took the job here, other than it was, well, the typical stereotypes. I didn't know anything beyond that. And so I came up here with all these great ideas. I'm like, oh, we can do this, we can do that. And one of the faculty members in my department, there's a little bit of hazing that goes on, not in a bad way. It's kind of like, yeah, that's great, that's fun, go over there and do something. Well, he handed me this article here. He said from 1936. He said, man, you studied cover crops, right? Well, 1936 publication here from the New Jersey Experiment Station did the same thing. He said, oh, I thought they figured all this out. The value of winter green manure cover crops. So what are you coming here to work on again? Well, essentially giving me a hard time. And I was like, well, I'm going to work on some cover crops, but it seems like we've already figured it all out. The reality is, the things that were being struggled with in this publication, which is actually better written than most of the stuff that we write today, are the same problems that we have today. It's about looking at improving the total output. Most of the time we look at our economics based on one crop at a time. When you have animals in the system, you have multiple inputs to be able to improve the total productivity, which probably relates to putting cash, hopefully putting cash back in your pocket. That's what they were discussing here in these papers. And so, when I was thinking about this, I was like, well, we're going to work in cover crops. I should know a little bit more about where cover crops are coming from. And so as part of a graduate faculty member, I have PhD students, and all PhD students get kind of, you go through these orals where you just get beat. You know, it's just like everything you should know from your entire life. And so you get to, as a faculty member, I'm on the other side of the table, I've got to come up with these kind of questions. And so I was curious, you know, as I searched the phrase cover crop in our written language, and that's what this is here. It goes from all the way to 1860 all the way to 2015. And this is using one of the Google search engines. And I asked, what was the prevalence of that phrase cover crop? How many times did it come up? Now, don't worry too much that if we think about in terms of all of our written literature, it's really not that important because that is a 0 with a decimal place, and there's about 6 zeros in front of it in terms of percentages. So in terms of the greater body of literature that we have, it's very irrelevant in terms of the bulk of literature. But what I thought was kind of interesting here when I was trying to think up of these kind of tough questions for my students here, these questions that really don't have a right answer to them. They have maybe better answers, but not the right answer. There is no right answer, I guess. I was curious, I was like, well, what's happening here, here, and here? So this is the 1920s for those of you who can't see. You see this uptick. 1919, 1920s, what happened right there? Why do you think there's uptick in the phrase cover crop? Yeah, the Dust Bowl. You know, I asked this a lot of times to predominantly corn and soybean producers, and I never get that answer. So I've asked this question now. This is the 5th time this week I've asked it. Nearly everybody's done it. So, what do you think is happening right here in 1940s? War. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is the war. I don't have a good answer for that one. So right here, this peak uritis, the Dust Bowl, the Conservation Services got involved. They said, hey, plants stabilize soil. Let's put some plants out there. They kind of coined this idea of cover crops. And then out here, this hump here, this is the 1960s. This is largely in response to the technology this gentleman built. So who knows what the Haber-Bosch process is? Haber and Bosch? Nobody? All right, that's okay. So Haber, okay, so we breathe dinitrogen, all right? It's two nitrogen atoms that are stuck together, and that's a really strong bond. It's inert, we breathe it in, we exhale it. But there are certain plants, what are those plants called? That can use dinitrogen and make nitrogen? Legumes. Legumes have a way through a biological deal with some bacteria. They share some carbon resources with this bacteria. This bacteria can take that dinitrogen and make ammonium and make nitrate, and a whole bunch of amino acids that are really important to plant health. Well, we've been after that forever, and we couldn't figure it out. Well, this gentleman here, he said if you apply enough heat and enough pressure, and enough energy, you can break that bond and you can make ammonium nitrate. Well, ammonium nitrate was one of the really big winners of the war because that's how we ended up making munitions, all right? So after the war, we ended up having a whole bunch of extra of this ammonium nitrate, and Chilean nitrate, which is a natural source, was running out. A lot of the guano and things. Has anyone ever read the book called Alchemy of Air? It's a really short read. It's pretty interesting on how we got where we are today with nitrogen. And not in a bad way, it's just kind of a nice story. But anyway, we have all this extra nitrogen, we've got to figure out what to do with it. Well, lo and behold, you put nitrogen on plants, what do? They grow. You can even put nitrogen on a legume and it's going to do better. Why? Because they're facultative. You've got to climb 100 stories. You have a choice. You can take the elevator or the stairs. You're going to get to the top either way. Which one would you do? You'd probably take the elevator unless you're kind of a fitness nut. So that's what's happening here. I think largely is that, we have this now nitrogen and this free nitrogen. We're trying to defeat the Nazis, I agree. Maybe it's less important to think about cover crops, but then we have this pushback in the 1960s with the birth of the conservation movement as a response to having nitrogen and chemicals into the environment. All right? So now you guys, when that comes up in your trivia, you're going to be like experts on it now. Probably, as my wife says, your audience knows more than they wanted to know now. So here we go. All right, this is what we're going to do. So here, pick your favorite annual crop. I assume it's corn. Anyone in this room grow corn? A couple of people, maybe some soybean too. Those are full season, right? 95 to 100 day varieties, roughly. Maybe maturity group 2 soybeans, 1.9, something of that nature. The point is that they eat up the bulk of the sunlight, all the resources. They're designed to be in the middle of the year. Well, we don't have anything going on here in the winter. We don't have anything going on here in the early spring. And we know that there's some issues with this cropping system. It's a little leaky. So what can we do? And that's what a lot of my work is on, how to handle this leakiness while not hurting this piece right here. That's really what we want to work on. There's a couple of different ways when you think about cover crops. You can do these that are designed to winter terminate. Your radishes, oats, things of that nature, not going to survive the winter. Annual ryegrass. Plant them up. You can plant them up in fall. You can plant them up behind your crop if you got it off early enough. They're going to winter terminate. You don't have to deal with the residue. You have another system, one I'm more interested in. You plant them up. They survive the winter. This could be like cereal rye, something of that nature. Survives the winter. Come out here in the spring. We're getting that coverage. We're getting coverage right here. We're getting coverage right here. And I'm suggesting that this system here is going to be less leaky. Or you can think of it in another way. This is a way you could also, particularly if you're looking at forage production, things of that nature, you could harvest this. This is a harvestable, and this could be utilized for meat and muscle, or milk and muscle. But when we think about cover crops, so how many of you let's see, there's a range of ages in here. How many of you have sat in front of a cover crop lecture 10 years ago? How many of you heard, these things go in cycles about every 15 to 20 years. There's a gentleman I work with now at the university. He's been there 42 years. He's seen, I think, 2.5 cycles so far, 3 cycles. And here's the situation. We have about 1.5% of cover crop utilization in the state of Minnesota. That's that green square, the brown square, red square. That's the 25 or 26 million acres of agriculture. That has not changed. Now we go through these cycles. Going through another cycle, another cycle, another cycle. Why hasn't it changed? Why aren't we seeing more cover crop use in the landscape? Does anyone want to tell me? I mean, I have my own opinions about it, but...
Part of soybean rotation is not enough time to get one established.
Sure. Back there, what else?
Money, if it don't work out because of the weather, get an early frost and stuff.
Sure.
You don't get any money out of it.
Sure, sure. Do you grow cover crops, by the way?
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else?
I hear a lot of times it doesn't work here. Too cold.
Yeah, it doesn't work here. It's amazing. I always find it interesting that when I look at some of the writing, how when you cross a state line, things quit working. But you are right. It is colder in Minnesota. Anything else?
Chemicals.
Chemicals? Yeah, there's a list, a laundry list of reasons. But there's one reason that no one ever mentions. So how many corn breeders do you think there are in the United States? There's a lot. Maybe 1,000. I don't know the number, but it's a lot. We have 27 graduate students in our program at the University of Minnesota, just in the agronomy and plant genetics department, and 2/3 of those are in molecular sciences or breeding and genetics. We produce a lot of people that go and work in corn and soybean. How many people, when was the last time you heard of an improved cover crop through genetics and breeding and all that to be able to fit in your system? When was the last time that you heard one of these grasses improved for your forage needs? Let me ask you another question. How many alfalfa breeders do you think are in the United States right now? 3, I think. 2 or 3. So this is the problem. This is why I think we've gone through these cycles and we haven't got anywhere. Because I'm still using cereal rye. My dad used cereal rye. My granddad used cereal rye. Nothing wrong with cereal rye. It's an awesome crop, but it hasn't been improved. Hairy veg, medium red clover, crimson clover, all these, they haven't been improved upon. Now some improvements have happened here, annual rye, and some of these have been improved largely for forage production systems. Yeah, but they haven't really been improved to fit in these systems here. All right. Like you said, someone said it's cold. It's right, it's cold. And it's growing degree data units is what we need. When we looked at the literature here, a group did a survey of the climate data, and they asked 2 specific questions. They said, okay, if you're going to have a successful fall establishment using an airplane, aerial seeding cover crops, what are the 2 things that you need? So what would you think you need to get a cover crop to grow?
Water.
Water and what else? Yeah. And, well, I guess it's really 3 things, but 2 of those are kind of confounded. So yeah, and so what they found out was when they looked at the upper Midwest, they said, okay, if you look at 30 years of climate data, you only have about a 25% chance on average to be able to get it to take in the fall using aerial seeding. Did you do anything that you had 75% potential? That doesn't mean it'll happen, but the potential of 75% failure? No. No one would. And so that's one of the situations here. So there's a lot of variability. As you move in this way, everything gets a lot easier. So the way that we're going to have to think about this is we're going to have to cheat. The pie is only so big. There's only so much light. There's only so much moisture. There's only so much heat. And so the way that my group is working on this, we're thinking, okay, we can go early. Maybe we can go late. All right, we have some none of this equipment is really that special other than it's got new paint on it. This is a high clearance drill. It's got 3 drill lines, skip, 3 drill lines, skip, 3 drill lines. We can go all the way up to about B10. I would not recommend doing that, but you can. We're not breaking corn yet. We work with a group that has a robot. This thing's pretty cool. And then we've just acquired a highboy that's set up to do some interseeding. Andy provided us with a orbital air seeder on the back. So we're just trying to get some cover crops out there. We're going to go early in the year and late in the year. Early before canopy closure, late in the year as the canopy starts coming back open. Okay? So here's what we're going to talk about for the remainder here. So this is some work that the Minnesota Department of Agriculture funded when I came into the state, I guess 3 years ago. And so the question was real simple. It was to ask this question, do you need to drill your cover crops? We're going to go early, B7. That's not the earliest you can go, but we picked a time. We asked, do you need a drill? Do you guys think we need a drill to put cover crops in the ground?
No.
Maybe not. Yeah, I don't think so either. But we have to look at it. So what we decided, we had this gradient, and I just kind of made this up. So I think as you move from left to right here, you get more soil disturbance. Because this is, you can't read it, but it says incorporation right here. It's just in black. But here's the way we're going to look at this. Let's say that don't worry about the directed business. That's a little trickier. But let's just say that I broadcast and I drilled, and I harvested those cover crops in 2 different bags, and they were weighed the same. What does that answer? This gentleman up front said it already. You don't need a drill. That's what we do in agronomy. We're looking at like all the different combinations. And it could be genetic combinations, it could be management combinations to figure out which ones are most optimal. In my case, I want a lot of biomass. I want a lot of biomass because biomass, nitrogen accumulation is a function of biomass. Bigger plants use more nutrients, they have more nitrogen in them, that's less leakiness in the system. So that's my parameter that I'm looking for. You may be looking for a different parameter. All right, so here's how we're going to do this. We got 3 ways of planting it. We got this broadcast with a little drag on it, and then we've got with some more incorporation, and then we got a drill. And then we're going to look at 5 different things to plant. Now there's a lot of things you can plant, but I'm specifically interested in things that survive the winter. I've got cereal rye, field pennycress, red clover, hairy vetch, and this fall mixture that's designed to winter terminate. All right? The reason why I'm interested in these is because I think we need coverage in the spring. Cereal rye, great winter survivability. Pennycress, as good as cereal rye. These are a bit more questionable. Red clover is a bit better than hairy vetch. Hairy vetch is, I would not plant it. I wouldn't trust it. And then we have these guys, oats, field pea, and tillage radish. So we've got 3 ways to do it. 5 different things to plant. That's a combination of 15, right? Plus a no cover crop check. Now we've got 16 plots per block. We won't get into the whole replication, but just know that we're at Waseca and Lamberton to represent kind of the northern corn belt. Okay, so this is what it looks like. In September, we came in at B7, B6, B7, ran our drill, put our treatments out there into standing corn. This is what it looks like in September. You got the hairy vetch. The fall, there's your tillage radish, your fall terminating mix, red clover, and cereal rye. This is just illustrating.
I got a question.
Sure, please.
If you back up, well, here it shows it, but it looks like that corn, it looks like something you planted in between the rows, but it's up about this high.
Yeah, this.
Okay, now, my question is, when did you plant that, and what did you use to plant that without knocking down the corn?
Oh, that's a good question. So the question is, I guess I glazed over that. The question is, what did I use to plant with? All right, and when? So I planted at B7 leaf stage. Just a fuzzy picture here. This is a high clearance drill. It has about 38 inches of clearance underneath it. And it's just a no-till drill. You know, it's got wavy coulters, a ripple coulter, double disc opener, and then packing wheels. It's just a normal no-till drill. But what we do is, so we have 3 drill lines, 30-inch corn, 3 drill lines, and then we have the one missing over where the corn is. So we never plant on top of the corn. Now, you do get in a little bit of limitations with your tractor. You need to have the same amount of clearance underneath your tractor. We did run this around V10 corn, and we didn't break any corn. I haven't looked at the data to see if we saw yield losses. But if we're around this high, V7 and below, you're not going to get any damage to the corn. If I'm not driving. If my technicians are driving, it's fine. I just run over everything. I know, it's terrible. If you want to drive it, they're like, no, Scotty, you don't get to drive. All right, so, okay. This is what it looks like in the fall. So this would have been planted up in June, around like June 7th or 8th. This is what it looks like. All right, this is what it looks like in the fall. We come in and harvest our corn. What I'm interested in, we're going to harvest the biomass. We're going to do some soil and sampling underneath this. But I'm most interested in the spring. All right? I'm most interested in the spring. So these cover crops, they go through the fall. Corn gets harvested. We leave as much stover intact as possible because stover's causing some issue with some of the smaller seeded cover crops. The grasses are fine, but the radishes and stuff, or the oil seeds tend to have a bit more trouble with getting through the residue. And then we come back in May. We come back, we sample the biomass, we drop a bit, we take a meter's worth of soil, we break it up in fractions, ask how much nitrogen was in the soil, and then we spray and no-till our soybean right on top of it. And that's the idea. So we measure corn yield in the year that we planted, soybean in the following year. So soybean would be coming behind these cover crops. And what we see though, on average, we can produce, so this is biomass production. You got the ones that survive the winter rye, red clover, pennycress. You have the drill and the broadcast incorporated, and what we find is that most of the time, having some incorporation in the system helps the cover crops. But you may not need a drill, and maybe 2,000 pounds is all you need. We haven't even assessed that, all right? So we've been able to produce some biomass in the spring. It works quite well. But what did it work in terms of nitrogen? Because remember, I want to stop off-site movement of nitrogen in my program. When we look at a no-cover crop, the no-cover crop check, and we ask the question, did a fall-terminated mix reduce the soil extractable nitrogen in the spring? And the answer is no. They may look different, but they're not different statistically. All right? So what it's saying is that radishes and oats in the fall gave me no service to nitrogen in the spring, reduction anyway. That doesn't mean that there was other things going on. It just means in a very restrictive view, this did not matter. However, all of these, because they were growing in the spring, growing plants use nitrogen. All of these had much lower nitrogen than the fall mixture and the no cover crop mixture. And that was about 10 pounds per nitrogen reduction within the first 30 centimeters. And we went all the way down to a meter. We showed reduction of nitrogen all the way down to 90 centimeters. Okay, corn yield and soybean yield. You see all these bars here? They're all about the same. So far, in all of our 6 site years of information, we have not seen a reduction in corn yield or soybean yield, but I have not seen an increase in it. This gets back to the economic business back there, that question there. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead to something here. So the SARE survey asked the people who grow cover crops, what do they want? And I heard a couple people mention some of these: soil compaction, erosion, nitrogen scavenging, and so on. But what I found quite amazing was when they got all the way down here to this economic return, only 17% of the respondents, there were 700 people that were surveyed that grow cover crops, actually thought cover crops could have some economic return beyond like grazing or something of that nature. And I think this is the real failure right here. I think, is it the fact that farmers who use cover crops don't realize there's an opportunity to make money with them, like real cash? Or are there no new genetics out there that will allow us to realize that goal? And I think it's largely the second piece here. So one of the programs we're working with the University of Minnesota is this developing of new genetics. Crops that can fit within your corn and soybean system that you can harvest and that you can sell. Maybe you don't have animals in your system. Maybe you're one of the almost 8 million people in the state that don't have that, or 8 million acres that is predominantly corn and soybeans. All right? This is where I think the win sets for us, because not only are we developing new crops, we're improving old crops as well. Winter barley, there's already a massive market already built for it. All we got to do is figure out how to get it to survive the winter. Geneticists and breeders at the U are working on these things. So what they do is they provide me, the agronomist, with new boxes to mix around to figure out the new combinations. And that's why it's critical. And this is the piece here that I think, this is happening at the same time we're developing the genetics, the same time that we're developing the management, we're also developing the partnerships. General Mills, PepsiCo, JetBlue. The reason why they're coming to the university for this is because their customers, their clientele, are asking for more sustainable products. And this is not just me just telling you this. 80 million in investments is what they're talking about here from General Mills. PepsiCo is on the University of Minnesota campus right now, researching right along with us now to figure out new polymers, new fuels. These are the things that are really important, because we can develop any new plant, but if you have no way of selling it, well, we just developed a new classical cover crop. And not to hate on classical cover crops, but I still think if we don't develop new markets, we're still going to be at 1.8%, right? We're going to go through that cycle, and then we'll wait another 20 years and figure it out again. So this is how the pennycress system works, pennycress and camelina. These are both winter annual oil seeds. They have very tight growth cycles. They're normally the first things to bloom in the state. So if you're in small grains for silage corn, I imagine there's probably someone in here that grows silage. You just take your crop off, plant the pennycress just like you'd plant any normal cover crop. This is what it looks like in the spring. You no-till, 30-inch soybean, full season beans right on top of it. Believe me, there's soybean in there. That's May. You have some of the earliest things flowering. Who's heard there's problems with the bees? Well, here's a floral nectar for the bees. Out here in mid-June, your soybean are sitting under there, and there's this soybean. What we find in this system is that we're getting reduction in our herbicides. We're getting early season weed competition with the oil seeds. So there's a lot of other pieces to it. But this is one of the big pieces. So this is just camelina, which is one of those two winter oils. And this is a monocrop soybean. That's just soybean only, and that's what that line tells us. And these are different kind of mixtures, either monocrop or soybean with camelina, swath, treatment relayed, or whatever. And what we noticed is that when you add the two together, you're getting more oil out of that system. And it's the oil that is extremely valuable in these. So this is what we're working on heavily. You can see that we're looking at now, we got about 30% protein in the pennycress and camelina milk. Now there's a couple caveats. Pennycress is kind of like your rapeseed, and camelina is kind of like the canola, but we're moving toward removing all the glucosinolates from the pennycress in the system. Last couple of things here, herbicides are a real issue. Looking at management of our herbicide resistance is not something to just kind of gloss over, but we do have some articles here for diversifying your herbicides don't have to hurt your cover crops. We have not done the research on this, but a lot of people have. So this is some really great work coming out of Penn State. There's 8 or 12 pages that we have referenced at our use at the U of M site here on pick a herbicide, pick a cash crop restriction, and they go through and look at the kind of the restrictions on it. Here's a nice colorful one coming from, in a colorful and a good way, coming from Wisconsin, really thorough. And if you just want kind of a nuts and bolts on it quick, I like the Iowa read because it's fast and it's got exactly what you need on it. Last couple things, if you're going to get involved with cover crops, consult with your RMA specialist. It's really important. Here's the one that I work with in St. Paul. You can call him. But yeah, definitely be sure that you have worked through all your insurance needs. And with that, I'll open up to questions.